Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Haribol, 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 Gaura Haribol. Jai Radha Madhava Jai Kunj Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Jai Kunj Bihari Jai Gopi Janavallabha Jai Gidivada Hari Jai Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Jaya Gidivada Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunj Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunj Bihari Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Raja Janarandana Jaya Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Raja Janarandana Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunj Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunj Bihari Jamuna Tiravanna Jadi Jaya Kunj Bihari Jaya Jamuna Tiravanna Jadi Jaya Kunj Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunj Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunj Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunj Bihari Jaya Hari Jayo Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare Rama, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Gaura Haribo. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Gaura Haribo. Jayo Vishnuvad, Paramahංsa Parivrājaka Ashtottara Satya Shishimad, His Divine Grace, Chaitanya Goswami, Bhaya Chandravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada ki. Jayo Vishnuvad, Paramahංsa Parivrājaka Ashtottara Satya Shishimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami, Srila Prabhupada Thakur ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki, ISKCON BBT Founder Chaya, Srila Prabhupada ki, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki, Premsago Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinda ki, Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath, Hare Krishna. So after a long time, I'm here again. My name is Suhotra Swami. And welcome. If you are new, then special welcome to you to this Sunday Feast program held every week here at the ISKCON Center in Amsterdam. And if you're not new here, then we're happy to see you again. So now we shall hear from Bhagavad Gita as it is. I would like to read to you a key verse. All verses are important, but some particularly are key verses for understanding the message of this entire text, the well-known Bhagavad Gita, spoken by Lord Krishna to Arjuna. So one such key text, which is often quoted, is in the early part of chapter 7. This chapter is called Knowledge of the Absolute, and we will be hearing from text number 2. This text reads in the Sanskrit, Jnanam te aham sa vijnanam idam vyakshami asheshatah yad gyatva neha bhuyo nyaj gatavyam avashishyate. So let us now learn what this means by repeating together the Sanskrit and the English word-for-word translation. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. I shall now declare unto you in full this knowledge, both phenomenal and numinous. This being known, nothing further shall remain for you to know. Purport. Complete knowledge includes knowledge of the phenomenal world, the spirit behind it, and the source of both of them. This is transcendental knowledge. The Lord wants to explain the above-mentioned system of knowledge because Arjuna is Krishna's confidential devotee and friend. In the beginning of the 4th chapter, this explanation was given by the Lord, and it is again confirmed here. Complete knowledge can be achieved only by the devotee of the Lord in disciplic succession, directly from the Lord. Therefore, one should be intelligent enough to know the source of all knowledge, who is the cause of all causes and the only object for meditation in all types of yoga practice. When the cause of all causes becomes known, then everything knowable becomes known, and nothing remains unknown. The Vedas, Mundaka Upanishad 1.3 say, Kosmin Bhagavo Vigyate Sarvam Idam Vigyatam Bhavati. So once more, we'll hear this verse and we can repeat the translation together. Gyante hamsa vijnanam idam vakshashi ashesha yadgyatva niha bunyonyaj yatovyam avishishate. So kindly repeat this after me. I shall now declare, unto you in full, this knowledge, both phenomenal and numinous. This being known, nothing further shall remain for you to know. Mukam karoti bachalam pangam langaya tegrimet kripadram mande Sri Gurundina Tarnam. So for someone who has delved into the labyrinth, the maze, in other words, of philosophy, there are some very significant words in this translation. Phenomenal is one, numinous is another, and in Srila Prabhupada's purport, he stresses also the word transcendental. So phenomenal, numinous, transcendental. These words were actually made prominent in European philosophy some 300 years ago or so, perhaps a little more than that, by a German philosopher named Immanuel Kant. So Kant, he proposed a system of thought which he called the critical philosophy. And that doesn't mean Nowadays we think the word critical only means to find fault with someone, to, walk up to someone and say, "You stink," criticize them. But he actually intended a different sense to this word critical. It means critical analysis, very careful, very methodical, that one should study things very minutely before coming to a conclusion. And this is the meaning of critical philosophy. So, actually Kant, he was in European terms a pious man. He was a very faithful Christian. And he thought philosophy should not just be some kind of speculation that leads anywhere. It should lead people to God, or at least to the understanding that I have to surrender to God. Actually, his point was that philosophy cannot reveal God, but what it can do is show us that we ought to, with good reason, surrender to God. And then what happens next, if he reveals himself to us, that will be in his hand. This was Kant's intention. He was battling against the rise of skepticism in European thought. Before Kant, there was a Scottish philosopher named David Hume. And his idea, which became very popular, and it's a very modern idea, it's still going on today, is that all we are as human beings is, in Hume's own phrase, an interesting phrase he used, we are simply a bundle of perceptions. You see, just like my eyes are seeing things, that's a perception, the vision, visual perception. But my ears are also hearing things, that's another perception, auditory perception. In this way, every sense, 5 senses, is supplying some object, in Sanskrit, tanmatra. And we are somehow or other bundling all that together. That's taking place in the mind and the intellect. These different feedings of data are being bundled together, and thus we are seeing the world as we see it. Things are connected, you see. Someone is talking, standing in front of me, his mouth is moving. So I'm seeing that with my eyes. Now also my ears are picking up a sound. You see? Now that's bundled together in the mind. That he's speaking, his mouth is moving and words are coming out that I can hear. He intends to tell me something. Just imagine if in our minds those two impressions were not bundled together. Someone would talk to us, but the sound, we wouldn't connect with him. The sound is something else entirely. Where is that sound coming from? We'd be looking around. And he'd be standing there trying to explain something, and we're looking elsewhere. Oh, there's a sound coming from somewhere. So this is something important. We take it for granted, but it's very important. That our buddhi, our intellect, and our manas, our mind, are bundling together what we see, hear, smell, feel, and taste into a package. So anyway, this Hume, this skeptical philosopher from Scotland, he declared that's all we are. That's all a person is that bundling together of sense impressions. So that's an extremely materialistic way of thinking of ourselves as beings. That we're just the objects of perception coming together. They come together, and that's us. In other words, we are what we see and what we hear and what we smell. That coming together makes us. Actually, there is a parallel philosophy in Asia to this, and that is Buddhism. Buddhism says that all we are the skandhas, and skandha in Sanskrit means impressions. So there's no, Buddhist philosophy is called anatma. It means there's no self. At least of course there's many types of Buddhism. It's a very speculative sort of ideology. So anyone can think up their own school of Buddhism if they want to. And so, yeah, there are some Buddhists who say there is a soul, but traditionally, or say orthodoxally, in Buddhism there's supposed to be no soul. And so all we are is the skandhas, the impressions, that come together at one point. The idea is given like there is rays of sun in the air, and you can take a magnifying glass, and all the rays that come through that glass will be pointed to one very hot, bright focal point, and then a fire will come out. If you aim that focal point of light on a piece of paper, hold it there, for a few moments it will begin to smoke, and then fire will come out. So in Buddhism, the traditional Buddhist philosophy, is that fire is the self. You see, it's the result of a concentration of skandhas, or impressions. And so the self is actually coming after matter. First there's the material impressions, and then out of that comes the self. And the self is dependent upon a certain arrangement of matter. You see, the self is temporary. The self is actually an illusion. So the traditional Buddhist concept of nirvana, this word nirvana in Sanskrit means blowing out. So the self is like a fire. You blow it out. When the self is gone, when you no longer think I exist, then you're liberated. There's no more you see. Nothing, shunya, void. So this David Hume, his philosophy is a kind of European Buddhism. He didn't know anything about Buddha as far as I know. At that time, ideas from India were very, very new, only just coming, and hadn't really influenced the intellectual life at that time. But all philosophy is somehow on some level interrelated. Perhaps he was a Buddhist in previous life and took birth in Scotland. Whatever, that's not important. But what he was teaching was a kind of Buddhistic idea. And Kant, being a pious man who believed very strongly in soul, believed very strongly that there's a God, he didn't like this. He thought this is a threat to our tradition here in Europe. And so he thought he used to say, the philosophy of Hume awakened me from my sleep. You see, I was sleeping thinking everything's okay, and then this very materialistic idea started to spread throughout Europe that there is no soul, and that consciousness, or this sense of self, is this result of material combination, and it is temporary and ultimately meaningless. That there's a you or I that's ultimately meaningless. It doesn't mean anything. You see, we're just just a temporary part of the greater cosmos and its workings. That's all we are. We are nothing. You see. So he thought this is a threat, and so he tried to conceive of what he called a philosophy of pure reason that would show that there must be a self. So he proposed that there is this phenomenal world, as Prabhupada uses it here. What does that mean, phenomenal world? Phenomena. Phenomena means what we are perceiving with the senses. Now, we are never in touch with what we perceive. There are many ways that can be argued. Kant argued that very extensively. But I'm just going to give one very simple argument, and I'm sure you can all understand it. It's very obvious, you see. Now, unfortunately today is a drizzly, dark, rainy day with clouds, but yesterday it was very nice outside. So you all remember yesterday, blue sky and the sun in the sky. So on such days, especially in a place like Amsterdam where the weather is often not nice, we like when there's sun. And we go outside and we look at the sun. And we stand under the sun, soak up some rays, as they say. Now, when you look at the sun, according to scientific calculation, you look at the sun and you appreciate this golden orb in the sky and the rays spreading throughout the atmosphere. I'm feeling warm. But actually you're not seeing the sun as it is. Because according to modern way of looking at things, the sun is so far away that it takes 8 minutes for the light from the sun to come to you. So what you see when you look at the sun is the sun 8 minutes ago. You're not seeing the sun as it is right now. So you're not actually in touch with the sun as it is. Even when you're out there looking at it and thinking, such a nice sunny day. And this separation by time of the experience and the experiencer, you see, what is out there and what we are perceiving of it, that's there in everything. It may just be a microsecond, but we are separated, you see, from everything by time, so that our state in this world is that as soon as we take notice of something, it's already not there. You see? As soon as you're, oh, what's that? As soon as you're registering that, it's already gone. It's already changed. You see? Even the simplest thing, something right in front of you. And you can study this and you can see that it's true. As soon as we notice something, this world is such, it is ever changing. So we are always trying to register something in the mind and capture it there. You see? We try to, our consciousness, our mind tries to work like a camera, capture things. So we capture that thing in as an impression. Again, samskara or skanda, impression. And then we're contemplating, what is this thing? You see, let's look at it. But out there, it's already gone. You see? Everything is in motion at all times. This is scientific. This is, you've all heard of the theory of relativity of Albert Einstein. That's one of the principles, that everything is always in motion, always changing. At every level. So even the people that are in front of us that we think we know, oh yes, I recognize this, but that person is changing before our eyes. In so many ways we may not perceive, we may not appreciate. On the molecular level, you see, on the cellular level, everything is changing. You see, his activities are, you see, nobody can sit still, we're always moving. You see, this means change. So this means the phenomenal world, ever changing. And because it's ever changing, we're never actually in touch with something. You see, that's there, because as soon as we think we're in touch with it, it's already gone. So this is the phenomenal world. This is what it means, and this is also in Kant's philosophy. And then there's the numinous world. So Kant supposed intelligently that the phenomenal world is only what we are able to see of a numinous reality, meaning a eternal and divine reality, the truth with capital T, or reality with capital R, that which actually is. We do not, his point is that in this embodied existence, this human existence that we're in now, we do not have the capacity to come in touch with the numinous realm, the actual reality, the actual truth. all we can perceive is this phenomenal world. So this is a very, very interesting and intriguing philosophy, and it became very widespread in Europe. It was very influential. People were fascinated by this idea. You see that we are limited by our senses and by our minds. Our senses and our mind are not capable of perceiving transcendence, this third word, transcendence, that which is above this phenomenal world. And numinous means spiritual. Although, as Kant said, we are part of that. We are soul. We are soul. We are part of that. But we have these material senses. And they don't allow us to perceive spirit. So this is our state. So now the problem with Kant's philosophy, what I've said sounds all very nice and in order from the point of view of Bhagavad Gita philosophy, Vaishnava philosophy. But the problem with Kant's philosophy is that's as far as it went. The next question, obviously, so if this is our state, now how do we cross over this wall of phenomena and come to the actual reality of things? And for that, Kant had really no clear answer. He sort of said by intuition. But that's very vague, intuition, you see? Intuition means a kind of feeling that really cannot be explained rationally. You just kind of have a feeling, and sometimes the feeling is wrong, you know? Sometimes it's right, but sometimes our intuitions are wrong too. That's not very, you see, a systematic method, just what I feel. And so that was the dark side of Kantian philosophy. He was trying to defend Christianity, and what he was trying to say is that you should surrender. You see, he was trying to say you should surrender, be a good Christian, follow the Bible, be good. That's the safe position. To really say, even if you're a good Christian, how you would cross over this wall of phenomena. And all he said is maybe by intuition that will help. So then there was this dark side of all kinds of, you see, Kant was trying to contribute something positive, but the result of his teaching were also a lot of very strange new philosophies started coming out, which were deliberately irrational. You see? They took it that Kant says, well, we can't really know the truth through our senses and our intellect and mind and all of that. It's just something you intuit. You know, you somehow perceive by some special, enter some special state of mind. So then you started to see in Europe persons like, you may have heard of, there was a Swedish playwright, I've forgotten the name, but he was very influential, a little more than 100 years ago. The name it's right there in front of me, but I just can't think of it. Anyway, this Swedish playwright, dramatist. So he used to spend his time in Paris, getting inspiration by drinking absinthe. You know, there's this type of liquor which has this powerful stuff called wormwood, powerful intoxication, which eats holes in the brain. But, you know, it's a real trip too, so he would drink a lot of absinthe, and he actually went mad. But this madness for him was a divine state. And he was getting, seeing all kinds of hallucinations, and he considered that to be good. This is going beyond the phenomena into something numinous, he thought. You see, and there's plenty of people like that today here in Amsterdam also. Right now, following the same process, you see. Because of this vague thing that Kant pointed to, intuition, not really knowing or being able to explain it. But maybe that's the way to get beyond the wall of phenomena. Yeah, intuition, and then there are chemicals which stimulate our intuition, our sixth sense or whatever. And so this is still going on today. So this may be very popular, but it is not the method. As Srila Prabhupada explained, because when he came to New York, this is what he was faced with. The whole generation, the young generation, was entering into this experimentation with drugs to try to see something beyond the phenomenal world, the material world, see something spiritual. So he explained that these drugs, all these chemicals, they're also material. And the mind itself is material. It's subtle material. In Sanskrit, shukshma. Shukshma means subtle. Shtula means gross. So these are two divisions of matter. Gross matter and subtle matter. And so the subtle matter, because it is subtle, it is mutable. Mutable means it is changing in so many ways. You see? We have this. Also, gross matter is like that too, really, but it appears to be. You see, this chair I'm sitting in, I'm glad that it's not changing as I sit in it. You see, it would be rather distressing if as I'm sitting in this chair it'd be changing, sometimes getting bigger and smaller, going this way and that way, moving around. It would be very awkward to try to give a lecture from such a change. So that's gross matter, but subtle matter changes. The mind is always changing. You see? It's the nature of the mind. Krishna says in Gita, chanchala, astiram. Chanchala means flickering. Astira means not steady. That's the nature of subtle matter. So, yeah, the mind changes this way and that way, and if we take drugs or whatever, do all these different, one doesn't have to do it with drugs. There are different sorts of meditations, and one can breathe. You see, very in and out, hoo, 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 or something they do. Or stand on one's head. Or I remember when I was a boy, we used to breathe on the schoolyard ground 15 times in and out, and then someone would hold us very tightly around the chest as we held our breath, and you would go unconscious for a few seconds, you see. And we used to do this on the school ground when I was 10 years old or 12 years old, just to see what it's like to fall unconscious, you see. So you don't even need drugs to do this. So this is the mind. The mind has these different states: conscious, unconscious, hallucinatory, dream state. So many different states are there. The mind can shift into any of these at a moment's notice. So people play around with the mind, and they think that now we're approaching something spiritual, but they're still in matter. It's just subtle matter. So then this leaves the question, this big question. What is the bridge? What is the bridge? We are ourselves numinous, a tiny spark of numinous nature, but now encaged in matter. So what is the bridge for us out of this condition into the numinous world, the spiritual world? And you see, this question has been haunting the Western world for a long time, for centuries. Haunting. But here's the answer in Bhagavad Gita. Yaj gatva neha bhuva nyaj gatavam avishishite. The knowledge that when it is known makes you the knower of everything. In other words, all ignorance is then removed. That knowledge, that numinous knowledge, which is complete light, you see? Light without any shadow, light without any darkness. That knowledge, idam bhakshami asheshita. I am now explaining to you asheshita in full. Krishna says, I am not in this Bhagavad Gita being mysterious. I'm not being enigmatic. I'm not deliberately, not mentioning something or just alluding to it in some, indirect way. He says, Asheshita, the whole thing, I'm explaining. He's telling Arjuna, because Arjuna has surrendered to him. Arjuna has, in the beginning of Gita, beginning of 2nd chapter of Gita, Shishisteham Swadimam Tvam Prapanam. Now I surrender to you and become my disciple. So this is the relationship between Krishna and Arjuna. Srila Prabhupada, in explaining this, he says, formerly, because their natural relationship is Sakya, friendship. Arjuna is an eternal associate of Krishna. But Lord Krishna wanted to show to the world, in terms of his pastimes, the necessity for accepting a spiritual master. So he put one of his own associates into temporary illusion there on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. By this he is showing us that nothing can be taken for granted. The living entity can take nothing for granted. Oh, I'm very advanced. Oh, I'm a Brahmana. You see, I have a thread on my shoulder. Or I was born a Hindu. You see, or whatever. You see, I have a big intellect, or this or that, whatever. Don't take anything for granted. Because here's Arjuna, Krishna's eternal associate. And suddenly he too is in illusion. But God is all merciful. So he is, by this act, he is showing us the proper way to get out of illusion. Because Arjuna is the eternal associate of Lord Krishna. When he found himself in illusion, he surrendered to Krishna. This friendly relationship that they naturally share was put aside. Arjuna became very serious. Now I am your disciple, a soul surrendered unto you because I don't know what to do. I'm confused, I'm bewildered. This is the position of the spirit soul in this phenomenal world. Ever-changing world. We don't know what to do. So he became Krishna's disciple, and Krishna revealed to him, not by some fancy mysticism, touching the spot between the eyes and there's an electric jolt and a bright blue flash. No. It's by speaking. And so words, the Greek word for word is logos, and from that we get logic. The word we use, logic. It is logical, it is reasonable. This is why God gives us a mind and an intellect and language. In some spiritual groups today, there was one famous ashram by a very popular so-called guru who taught this type of, as I mentioned, hoo-hoo, deep breathing, meditation, jumping up and down till you see spots and become dizzy. And that's supposed to be another state of mind. So he had on the front gate of his ashram in Pune a big sign that said, shoes and minds must be left here. So in other words, you come into my ashram, but don't bring your mind. Leave it outside. Don't bring your intellect. Well, then the question, then why did God give us that? Why did God give us a mind and an intellect if we're supposed to leave it at the door of the ashram when we come for spiritual life? Leave it. But this, this is answered nicely in Bhagavad Gita. That although we are in the phenomenal world, as Prabhupada nicely explained, in the real meaning, he's explaining the real meaning of renunciation, vairagya in Sanskrit. Renunciation means to become detached from all these things in this world that we bind ourselves to in our illusion. Beginning with this body. People take shelter of the body. The body is me, they think. But no, the body is not me. Me is eternal soul. A body is temporary matter. and then all the paraphernalia of the body, relationships of the body, we become also attached to that. This is mine, this is, you see, he is mine, she is mine, this car is mine, this house is mine, this money is mine. So this is called raga, intense attachment. Vairagya, renunciation, means to become detached from that. You see, so Srila Prabhupada in explaining the Vairagya that is taught in Bhagavad Gita and in the Vaishnava Shastras, the Vedic Shastras, Vedic scriptures, he says that to say, oh, motor car, automobile is material, therefore I give it up. This is not real renunciation. Although many people think like that. But it is not real renunciation. Because if you say, I give it up, what does that mean? You're thinking that it's yours to give up. So that is already an expression of attachment. You see? Just like there's one big guru who teaches a form of meditation that he's brought out of Buddhism called Vipassana meditation. And then he, in his lectures, public lectures, he always begins his talk by saying, you must become free of desire. He looks at everyone very seriously. You must become free of desire. But that in itself is a desire. You see? If I want to become free of desire, therefore I've come to hear it, that's my desire. I'm thinking, oh, having so many desires is such a trouble. Let me come free of desire. That is a desire. You see? So, Prabhupada was explaining, to say, oh, motor car, automobile, or anything, it is material, therefore I give it up. That is not actual renunciation. Hidden in this statement is attachment. Therefore, this is called Palgu Vairagya. Only apparent renunciation. There is a river that flows in Bihar, at Gaya. Gaya is a very holy place to Vaishnavas because the Vishnu Pada are there, the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. Also the Buddhists, they have their Bodh Gaya there. So the river that flows through Gaya in Bihar is called Palgu. Now when you go to see the Palgu river, what you see is a sandy bed, a sandy channel. And you think, what kind of river is that? But you have to reach into the sand, put your hand down, and then you'll come to water. The water is underneath. It's not apparently a river. That's why it's called Palgu. Apparently this is not a river, but the water is flowing underneath the sand. So similarly, apparently, I will give up motor car. I will give up house and wife and bank balance, my clothes. I'll walk through the Dhamplat stark naked and show everyone I'm a real renunciate. And maybe in Amsterdam it'll be very popular, but this is not actual Vairagya.